goes live when we're kind of halfway through a conversation because we're so casual here, you know. So, I mean, it says it's recording on your side, man. So I think we're good. It doesn't. I don't have any warnings or anything. So, yeah, let's just say that it's working.
All right, sounds good. The
Perfect.
uploading's at 0. Oh, there we go. The uploading's up now. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, perfect. All right, okay. There's a bit of an echo on your end though. Wait,
Is there?
but we've just turned echo cancellation on, so it's all good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I heard my voice coming through your end, but I no longer do.
Okay.
No one told us about all these things when you launch an online business, right? You know what browsers you're allowed to use to record through Riverside FM. But here we are, mate. Should we rock and roll?
Roll, man.
Amazing. Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Very excited today to have my brand new friend Richard Fu here with us. He's a business freedom designer from Outsourcing Angel, where they help small to medium businesses scale their businesses to run without them through automation, and systemization, maybe even automation if we can make that a word. So we're going to talk about making systems sexy and how business owners can avoid the common, I suppose, pitfalls of scaling their business in a digital world. Let's get started. Straight out of Sydney, like myself. Welcome, Richard O'Geekmaster. How are you?
Thank you, Alex, man. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for taking the time out, guys, and hopefully I can bring some good value here on the chat here with you, mate.
Well, I've been reading a couple of your blogs. You did have a lot more hair in the video blogs that I was watching, so I'm assuming it was a little while ago. But yeah, man, it sounds like a super valuable topic that we're talking about today. Systems, automation, not something that people think about when they're starting the business. You kind of they thought about the dream, and then they kind of they fall into it later on. But let's talk about how you got into it first, because I think it's you got a pretty common backstory when it comes to happy and awesome entrepreneurs like yourself, which is that you were not always that way. You kind of came from a corporate background and then had this lightning bolt moment that it wasn't for you. Tell us about your ambitions that you had in the corporate world and ultimately what led you to leave them behind.
Mate, like, man, this might take up the whole podcast, Alex, but look, I'll try and keep it short. Like, I did the normal thing that most people do, right, with their lives is I'm gonna go to university, get a degree, get a good job, right, and then you'd be set for life kind of thing. That's what my parents wanted on that end. Luckily, they're not like you gotta be a doctor or dentist or lawyer. They're just like whatever makes you happy. I'm like, cool. Computers make me happy, right? Finance makes me happy. So I finished the degree. I ended up getting a job at KPMG, one of the big four consulting companies in the world, right? And so I joined the IT, like management consulting division, and I'm like, oh, cool, right? I got a path now, is just to go to be the partner, right? One of the partners at KPMG, and I'm like, that's my dream. And then I'll buy some property on the side. It'd be good, guys. And I remember first 6 months, I'm like watching it, and I'm observing around me. I'm like looking at this director over here, and he's like, 50 years old, and he's like cranking it, and he's there from like 6 7 a.m. and working all the way through to like 10 11 past midnight. I'm like, what the hell, that's the pathway to partnership? I'm like, that's not on, that's bullshit, right? Sorry, right? The expletives, right? But that's not what I want. That's not why I created the life that I imagined it to be. So then I'm like, dude, I'm lost. I'm gonna go figure out what I want to do. And as I started doing more work at KPMG, I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing here. How it's adding value to the world. I'm like going out there helping big companies fire thousands of people every year, right, and make their processes better by firing all these people, right? And then they pump out billions, squillions of dollars, and I'm like, I'm not helping nobody here, right? I feel like I have no social impact, and so I'm like, what can I do? And then that's how I came across like these personal development seminars, right? So from people like T. Harbecker, Tony, right? I went to one. I'm like, why does this feel like a cult? But then I'm like listening in, and they're like, they're saying something right here, right? Something makes logical sense here for me. And that's when it kind of went up. I'm like, I could go do something else on the side here first to see if I can create something, you know? And that's kind of like what happened. I'm like, I started moonlighting, right? Like, your side gig type of thing. And I'm like hiring coaches, and I'm like figuring out what do I want to do that one can either help me transition away from a job, right, and have, we would all love passive income, but at the same time, it's like there has to be active income, you know, and then that's how I kind of started into the whole coaching realm, right? Like we were discussing before, Alex, I don't need to go to university to be a certified coach or all this other stuff. Is I have experience, and man, the first thing I wanted to do was teach people how to find love, right? And this is me. I'm like mid-20s, right? I don't think I had a girlfriend at that point in time. At that point, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna teach people how to love themselves, so then that they can attract the love of their life, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was moonlighting that, and that's how I started building a system behind it as well. Because I'm like going to KPMG, working right about 9 to 5, and then at night I do stuff, or on the bus rides right back to work and from home and stuff. I'm working, but I also had a VA that would help me do the social side of things. So I was pumping out that stuff right without all pre-scheduled, that type of thing too. And so that's kind of like my journey into escaping the corporate world, right? Where then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this thing. And so much so, man, I was like trying to be Asian Tony Robbins, right? Did all the courses, learned how to clap like Tony on the stage and all that stuff, man. And I'm like, I'm going to take this from Sydney, going to go to Asia, go to Singapore and give it a real hard crack. And, unfortunately, Asians weren't ready for Asian Tony Robbins yet, right, to change their life. But in that moment, that's when I realized, actually, a lot of entrepreneurs are coming up to me like, Richard, hey, we're traveling with you, we're hanging out, but you're posting stuff and all this stuff's coming up. I don't understand, man. Like, not even using your phone right now. How are you doing this? Like, guys, what are you talking about? I have a system. It's all pre-scheduled. I have a VA who's helping out doing that. We've got the processes in place, and that's why it's all there. I don't need to rush out to figure out what to post now. And then like, can you show us? Can you do it for us? I'm like, dude, I don't need to do it for you. Did you just do this? And like, dude, this sounds complicated. Can you just do it for us, Richard? And I'm like, actually, this might be something else. And so that started my journey of moving away from being the founder and into, what if I was the best supporting actor, right, for a business owner? And that's how I kind of delved into where I'm at now.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. No, that's awesome, man. I really cool story. I really appreciated the part where you just didn't feel right about just telling people to fire people, telling businesses to fire people. That's always been like a sign of I guess authentic, is integritus a word, honest business owner, well-meaning business owner, that in hard times they still support their team. It's the business owner who doesn't pay themselves, they pay the team and they figure it out, that sort of thing. I think that's always been super important. So I love that part of it, and I want to get into talk about it a little more. I've just had a message from Christian, the producer, saying that we've had a message about an issue on your end. So I'm just gonna what do you reckon, Christian? We're still technically live stream, but don't worry about that. No one's watching. So, Christian, what do you think, brother? Are we safe here with the? He says he needs to change browser. Okay, so even though it says it's recording, we're not recording. Is that the case? Either Chrome or Microsoft Edge. How interesting.
Sure, man.
Because the error went away. That's so annoying.
Sure, man. Let me
is that? Yeah, should we switch it up?
Oh, that's fine, dude. I just paste the same link though, yeah? And then that should be okay.
Yeah, 100%. So Christian says, I sent you a screenshot of the error on Slack. Yeah, so we saw that error at the beginning of the podcast, Christian. And then it went away. So we just thought that maybe it's fine now.
Cool.
True
Let me this one, and then I'll join over on Chrome, okay?
No worries, man. I'll be here.
So.
He's back. He's back.
Better?
It looks the same. That's the thing. On mine, it looks all the same. But Christian, the producer, says that it is. Let's chat to Christian.
Yeah.
Do we have any error messages coming up now, Chris? Christian's the man. Christian is the freaking man. Chief problem solver. I think it's all good, mate. Yeah, awesome. Hey, Richard, how would you fancy repeating your first answer?
You do whatever we need to do, man. You need me to do it, I can do it again too.
Well, I want to
You got,
cover all bases. I want to make sure that I thought that was a very valuable answer, a very cool story as well about how you became the ultimate man coach. And yeah, I think that people need to hear that story. So why do we do it again? Just touch just to cover our asses on that one. I want you to have a good episode because I really appreciate you rebooking and waiting around and dealing with all this nonsense. So I want to make sure you get some good content. You got you got it in you to do it again.
yeah.
Amazing.
This is my favorite story.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's a good one. It's a good one, and I'll be interested to see if you do it word for word this time as well. Let's start again. Anyone on the live stream, Mum, hello, good to see you. Thank you for watching so far. We're going to start the recording again, and here we go. Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second time recording this intro today with my very, very patient guest, Mr. Richard Fu. He is a business freedom designer at Outsourcing Angel, where they help small to medium businesses scale through automation and systemization and virtual assistants. So we're going to talk about how to make those systems sexy, how automation can be a game changer for small business owners, and how to avoid the common pitfalls along the way. Mr. Richard Fu, we've been talking for about 20 minutes already, but thank you once again for being here.
Right, excited to be here again, Alex. Right, but now I'm going to try and deliver even more, right, than I did in our outtake over there before.
Can you do it even better? That's what I want to hear. I know you've got it in you. You said you're going to bring some magic, so let's ask the question again. You have a background that we hear a lot in the coaching and entrepreneurial space, in that you had the common life path laid out ahead of you. Good job, university, white picket fence, BMW, all the things that tick off success in the Western world, right? But you had a lightning bolt moment. You came to a realization that this was not for you any longer, and that's led you to being the entrepreneur and the happy, awesome, free individual that you are today. I'd love you to take us back to your ambitions in the corporate world and what it was that ultimately led you to leave it behind, please.
Yeah, thank you, man. That's a good summary of it, Alex. And guys, what happened to me was graduated from university, went into KPMG, right, one of the big four consulting firms in their IT management consulting team. And I'm like pumped. I'm like, cool, my path's set. Just got to work my way up to partner. The dream was I'm gonna go be partner, go over to Switzerland, live there, go skiing on the Alps, right, in the weekend. I'm like, that beautiful life, right? That's what I want. And what I realized 6 months in, very quickly, I'm like, I looked over the table and I saw this other guy. He was like 50 years old. He was a director and he was busting his ass to, work towards partnership. I'd see him in the first thing in the morning at like 6, 7, 8 a.m. And I leave, sometimes late, and he's still working like 10, 11 p.m. I'm like, that ain't life, right? That's not the life I want. And as I started doing more work at KPMG, what we were doing we're helping consulting with processes, right, for big businesses. And for some part of me, I felt like I wasn't adding value to the world. I would go in, I'd say, hey, fix this person, and people, as a result of these suggestions, they would fire people, they would reduce staff, and I'm like, how is this helping the world? It's only helping that company make more money, right? And so I'm like, deep down inside, I'm like, this is not making me feel great in my life. And look, I still stuck it out for another 4 or 5 years, but in that time, I didn't want to make an immediate cut and go, nah, that's not for me, and then go wander the woods, right, afterwards. And so what I went down was I came across a whole personal development front. I started learning from T. Harv Eker, right, the guy who wrote, the Millionaire Mind. Yeah, exactly, right. And I'm like, I've watched a video of him, introducing it. I'm like, this is like a cult, man, because he kept saying, you've probably this Alex, he's always like, yes or yes, or true or true. I'm like, why is he saying this all the time, right? I'm like, this is a mad cult. But then I started looking beyond that. I'm like, actually, what he's saying is true, right? Like, psychologically, it's making sense. I'm like, I'm just going to go out and try. And then in that moment, I went there for like, I think it was like a whole day event, and I'm like, man, I really need this because there's something wrong with me internally. I need a coach. I need to figure out my mindset and all of that. And so I remember my friend from KPMG, he came with me. He's like, dude, are you gonna buy this stuff? This is all a scam, right? And I'm like, dude, no, I need this, right? I'm tired of like reading stuff. I gotta take action. So I remember I hired the coach. And then I started to work with the coach to figure out what business do I run? How do I moonlight and start a side gig? And that's how we started to. First, it was like a website, right, to go sell a stupid ebook, right, and then like, yeah, ebook to millionaire, right, type of thing, right. That's what we're gonna do. But after that, we evolved even further into what if I could coach people? And mate, like I was saying before, Alex, like I was mid-20s. I think I just came out of a relationship, right, my first relationship, and like I had to spend time to figure out myself and love myself. And I'm like, what if I could do that for other people and help other people do that? Dude, I was so into it where I'm like, man, no one's going to pay me to coach them because they zero experience, right? And zero case studies. So I'm like, I'm going to run Facebook ads, paying Facebook to go, first 10 people to sign up for free. I will go through a 12-week program with you. This is what the program looks like. This is how we're going to help you. And I remember I had calls with these people and like, so this is free, right? And are you sure? Like, how's this gonna happen? I'm like, dude, this is beta testing for me. I want you to get a good result from it, so that then I can use that to showcase to other people. That's why I'm doing it for free, you know. And then we did that. I finished the programs, and then I started going further out, doing workshops and stuff like that. And yeah, man, I was trying to become, and that evolved from a love coach to become the ultimate man business, because I started a virtual summit where I interviewed people like John Gray, John DeMartini, the Commando from The Biggest Loser, right? And I was like, dude, what makes the ultimate man? And I don't want to hear, like you say, like Western world says success looks like this, but men are brought up into this bullcrap world of this is how a man should be. And I'm like, what if we could determine that ultimate man is whatever you want it to be, right? And that's how I shifted into men's coaching. And I'm like, quit my job, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go take this. I want to be Asian Tony Robbins, right? Learn how to clap like Tony, everything on the stage. Went from Sydney, went to Singapore. Asians weren't ready for Asian Tony Robbins yet. Luckily, still got a few years, right, to wait for it to eventually crack. And when I was there, I started doing the whole laptop lifestyle thing, meeting more entrepreneurs, and they're like, Richard, you're traveling with us. You didn't buy a data sim, but yet you're posting on Facebook and all this other stuff. What the how's this happening? Man, tell me, right? And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I have a system, I have a process, I have a virtual assistant. Even when I was at KPMG starting the business and doing social, I had a virtual assistant part-time to help. And they're like, how can you do it for us? I'm like, dude, it's just like this. This is what you do. And they're like, no, I don't know how to do it. Can you just do it for me? And that's when I realized for myself, I just got to stop being number one, right? I got to start being the best supporting actor. Like on my show, the podcast show, I interviewed Dan Priestley from Key Person of Influence. And I asked him, Dan, what makes an amazing entrepreneur? He's like, not the guy who's in the spotlight or chasing the spotlight, Richard. The best type of entrepreneurs are the ones that control the spotlight and shine on other people in their team. And I'm like, holy crap, that's me, right? That is more me than the dude holding up camera and doing some random content. And I'm like, what if I could just do that? And that's how I got my foot into the virtual space, into the systemizing space, because I realized entrepreneurs are great at starting things. They're great at, lighting that fire, but they don't know how to keep that fire going and then make that fire bigger, right? And so that's why I'm like, what if I could just do that? And that's what I get to do now, right? Outsourcing Angel.
Well, that's the whole point of this podcast, man, is that it's and thank you for that very, very all-encompassing answer, by the way, and a great story. So I appreciate you going through that. There's a lot to unpack in it. But what you just mentioned, that entrepreneurs are great at starting things and then they get lost. I mean, that's the beautiful and also the messiest thing about having an entrepreneurial mind, is that you have dreams and you're like, oh, fuck it, I'll go after that. And then you don't really have an idea. And in the coaching space and the online space, there's so little barrier to entry in terms of experience needed, in terms of money. You can basically start for free, right? People don't really have as much incentive to learn the systems, put the processes together, because you can kind of wing it and put out a few Facebook Lives a week and get a couple of clients, and then you're a coach. But everything we're going to talk about today is going to be the stuff that can help you to take it to that next level. And I love what you're saying about just being the person behind the scenes. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, are you telling me, Richard Fu, that you can have a successful online business without doing a Facebook Live every day and documenting everything you ever do on Instagram stories? Because that can't be true.
No, right? Like obviously there has to be a face, a star, right? And for me, like, you know, Alex, when I came back from Singapore after running a few businesses, I'm like, you know, all I wanted to do was just operations, right? Let me do operations, let me do remote teams, let me do management, let me do that, but not sell, not go marketing and all that.
Yeah.
And I came back and I'm like, look, I don't want to start a business because I have to be that, right? To start, you have to be that. I'm like, what if I found a company or someone where I'm really aligned with what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I came across Lynn, right? Our founder here at Outsourcing Angel. And I'm like, Lynn, do you need any help? We tried to do some work before, and then she looked at my background, and we did some work, so she kind of knew how I operate. And then she's like, holy crap, Rich is really good. I need you. Even though I don't know what you're going to do, I know I need you. And I remember I said, you got a job description, Lynn? And she's like, nah, man, I just know you're going to do good stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, Lynn, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create the dream business that you want, right? Which is a business that runs without you. And she's like, duh, I didn't know that's what I wanted either. Right? She's like, whatever. And that's kind of like what we did. And, you know, for me, I spent probably the last 4 or 5 years in the background with her being the star. And I'm like, what if I can shine the light on you, Lynn, and make you look brighter and better than you ever thought? That's what I think about, right, as a supporting person. And you know, what I realize is I still have the entrepreneur stuff in my head, right, the business acumen and all of that. And so I'm actually more of an intrapreneur, right? So an entrepreneur inside an organization that's then pushing the organization forward on that end. And you know,
Love that.
that's what I think about here is, you know, yeah, you can build an online business that has no face and all of that, but people aren't going to buy from it without personal connection sometimes, especially if you're charging the higher price stuff, right?
Yeah.
If it's product, sure, man. If it's under like $100, like don't even think about it, right? I don't need someone's face to sell it to me. If you're going down the coaching route, like that's personalized services. People buy from people, you know,
Yeah.
and so you have to put yourself out there on that end, but you need to then have that support behind you of like, hey, how do we make you better, right? So that
Yeah.
then, you know, what I wanted to build was, so what when coaches come to us is, how do I build a process so that one, as a coach, you don't need to go follow up leads, you don't need to follow up, you know, onboarding, you don't need to do these other things. All you need to do, because this is all what coaches really want, right? Is I just want to rock up, Alex. I want to freaking bring down that magic that channels through me in that moment, and then I do that for the next client, right? And then that's what I built my own boards of like, hey, VA, when I move this client to this step, your job, email them this, right, with this template, and then follow up, right?
Well, let's talk about this because this is something that I think is really, really interesting. What you're touching on there is that in a business like coaching, like you've mentioned, you know, time with the coach is the product. It is the service. What people are paying, you know, a good chunk of their paycheck to attain. So it can seem difficult or impossible to have a coaching business that runs 90% without you because to scale a coaching business, a one-to-one or one-to-many coaching business, a coach needs more clients and therefore kind of needs to just spend more hours working and being in front of their clients. So for the people listening, what are some of the first steps that they could be to remove themselves from the day-to-day of their coaching business so they can just rock up and deliver, which is what they ultimately came here to do?
So look, if you're starting out and you're like, look, I'm getting a few clients and then it's getting a bit hectic now, right? To manage them. What I always think about is you want to figure out the parts that you're doing that are in delivery that doesn't need you to do it. And this is the thing with coaches, is like they're like, oh, but they're buying from me and that email has to come from me, right? When I onboard them and all of that, it's like there's those things there that can be cut off. So like literally, you know, the first part of, hey, even when you have like the discovery call or strategy before they've signed on, hey, I'm gonna send you a proposal, right? Instead of saying you're gonna send it, you go, I want to get my assistant who's gonna send you the proposal and then all the terms and all of that. And then, you know, if you have questions, you know, let me know because I'll be in the email too. It's moving those functions of you having to send that stuff. Well, then let's say this in terms of them paying, right? And then you have to onboard them, right? I'm sure you have to send them some things to get ready. You don't need to do that. Why can't your VA, or why can't you automate that? Right? You can automate it so like a Stripe payment comes in, you know it's a new client, and then it sends this email that's templated up for them, you know? And then after that, it's like with coaching especially, it's like I always recommend coaches, if they're like, oh, it's like an ongoing type of thing, it's like, oh, you need to have that system. When I say system, it's like when someone comes in, they need to know you're following a process that's going to help them get their results, right? If it's a 12-week process, this is what you get at the end of it, you know? And then it's building that process in a project board. So whether it's Trello, Asana, whatever you want, you know, I started off with Trello. It's free, right? And I would have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Each client would have a card, and then I'm like, VA, when I do this card to week 2, that means it's your job to send this next email.
Yeah.
And just that way, it's like you're getting stuff out of your head. You shouldn't think about like, oh, I got John's call tomorrow. What am I going to talk to John about? It should just be, you look at it, it's like, oh, he's on step 5. I know what step 5 is.
Yeah. So you kind of need to first, before you start all the systems and processes, you've got to really figure out what's the big idea for your coaching business. You can't just have the, you know, open-ended, intangible, I'll mentor you. You've got to systemize it. You kind of need to figure out what is the process, what's my unique mechanism, and then you can break that down and systemize that. Because without having that kind of process, then it's going to be damn near impossible because every client's unique. So you need to kind of build a framework for coaching that you can obviously customize to each client as they come through it when they're on the phone, but ultimately they all follow the same path, and that's how you get more scalable results, right?
Correct, right? So some people are like, oh, but I'm a coach, it's custom to you. It is, but there's also, if you look at all the people you help, there's a pattern of what you're teaching them, which is usually the same things like, hey, we're going to understand your mindset first, then we're going to understand your big goals, and then we're going to do this other thing. And it's like, if you broke that down to steps, then you can have, hey, this is my 5-step process, right? To take you from, let's say, you know, unsure man, right? Over to becoming your own ultimate man, right? This is how we're going to do it. This. These are the stages, right? Does that make sense? And it helps with the closing process because we buy on emotion, but your logical brain will be like, the moment you pay for something, you're like, oh, man, I don't know what the hell I just bought, right? And that instant regret is what you alleviate with this is the system. These are the steps I'm going to take you through. It's going to 12-week program, and it looks like this. Yeah, and then your logical brain is like, that makes sense, right? I'm not crazy. I'm wasting money. I'm not getting scammed here, right? And that's what you want to be building out, because then your delivery is standardized. And that's the idea here is, I'm not going to say for the first time, if you've got no coachees or whatever, do what I did. You have a rough idea of what you think it might be, and then you refine it, right? Until you get very clear on that exact IP of yours, then it's going to be really much more easier to sell and show people, I get you this result versus I make your life better. Like, what's that?
Yeah, it's tough to come up with a service and a process, you know, without having the feedback and experience of clients having been through it, because that's kind of what I feel is the big mistake of a lot of coaches, is they'll create a program and then find the audience for it. But you kind of have to do it the other way around, right? Yeah. You've got to find the audience for it. Like, I'm really glad to be talking to you today, Richard, because I'm into almost year 4 of my marketing agency for coaches. And the last few months for me have been all about systemization. And as a dude who's generally just been winging it in business for the past 10 years or so, I'm surprised how much fun I've had in this process of automating things and softwares and Zapier and integration, all these words, because I was pretty resistant to that first step of delegation. But what I've noticed is that exactly as you're saying, I had to figure out with those first couple of years what does work and what doesn't work for marketing for a coach, right? And then when we started to scale it, and I brought on a sales team and, you know, amazing assistants like Christian and Flor-de-Lisa and Gabby, who's my client success manager, to be able to have everyone on the same page, we had to say, okay, what's month one, what's month two, what's month three. Client will have a different campaign and different goals, that sort of thing. By saying, okay, month one, we do your conversations campaign. Month two, we do your awareness campaign. Month three, we do your conversions campaign. Here's all the bells and whistles that go with it. People understand that the sales process becomes easier, the delivery process, every client check-in, onboarding. I mean, you're absolutely spot on, because you are telling me exactly what's happened in my business in the last year. And man, between you and I, we just brought on a new client while I was on this podcast, and I had a ping that there's money in the bank and the client's being onboarded as we speak. I haven't even met her. So really, really, really cool. And I suppose the question is, what's the first thing you would say to a coach who is hesitant to start this delegation process in their business, even if it is just starting with a part-time VA or virtual assistant?
I guess my question would be more, where do you want to see your business going, right? Is this something that, you're fine with on the side, and it's just you mentoring people on that end, right? If that's where it's at, no issues. Continue doing what you're doing, right? Go the way you want it to be. And, most people get sucked into the belief. I got sucked into, like, I need to go create a huge company, right? And that's what I want to do. It's like, and this is one of the things I had to talk to with Lynn, is like, when I came in, it's even whether it's this is your first business, or this is your first coaching business, or your bigger established coaching business. It's like, I remember I went with Lynn. I'm like, hey Lynn, so what's the goal for this company here? She's like, I want it to be the biggest outsourcing company in the world. I'm like, why is that? She's like, I don't care, Richard. I just want to be the biggest and the best, right? I'm like, that's unclear to me, right? And then that just creates like undue pressure, right? From your self-pressure. It's like, we're going to be the biggest. I'm like, what the hell does the biggest look like? What's the best look like? And, it's unclear, right? And this is what happens with entrepreneurs, is sometimes we make these dreams, like you say, but it's fuzzy. And when you work with me, I'm like, what the hell is that? And then, it makes people uncomfortable, because they're like, why you like, questioning my vision, right? I'm not questioning, I'm just trying to clear it up, right? So that we can build that path there, right? And this is a very important question. And eventually we got down more later where Lynn was okay with it. And she's like, you know what? We don't need to be the biggest. We don't need to be the best, right? I'm okay with how we're growing, because it makes me feel like, one, I'm making real impact on business owners, right? Two, we're helping VAs who we don't want to go to office, so we don't have any offices anywhere, right? Everyone works from home, so we save all that time in traffic, right? And and then three, we help place these VAs in jobs where they normally wouldn't be able to get the freedom that they have. And so for Lynn, eventually it turned into, instead of being the biggest company ever, it's, this is like a freedom business, right? Where work whatever you want, do whatever you want. And for her now, it's like there's a team there that executes most of it, just like what you have, right? It's like, stuff is happening for me. I take a holiday. That's what I want. And so for any coach, or sitting there thinking, do I get a part-time VA? Ask yourself more, what do you want this thing to be, right? Is it a lifestyle business? Sure. Then just depends how big you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right.
What we people like me hate people like you, Richard, because you're so damn logical, and we have these big egos and dreams, and then you come in and just put some reins on us and make us actually think about what we're doing, and and we need you so much, because that's such a smart question. What do you want your business to look like before you go and listen to the next online influencer saying that e-com's the only way, or VAs are the only way to go, or a digital marketing business, or an ebook to millions is the only way to create, to get this private jet Instagram photo. Like, you got to figure out what you want from your life before you. And it kind of, sometimes you need to get to what you thought you want to realize that you didn't, like you with KPMG, like me going through when I was a super ambitious, like 21-year-old chef, and I got myself to better and better restaurants. Yeah. And the higher up I got in restaurants, the better the chefs were, but the less happy they were. The head chefs were there all the time. They were always hungover. They were smoking and had no families. And I was like, that's not really the go for me. But they were the best chefs ever. So figuring out what you do want and what you don't want is very, very smart. You work with VAs in the Philippines.
Yes.
I just want to know because I love my Filipino team as I do my Aussie team.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Like, just in your mind, what's so great about hiring these talented people in the Philippines? Because we all do it, and I just think they're extraordinary people. But you work with so many Filipino assistants. What's your favorite thing about them?
Oh, favorite thing about working with Filipino VAs, like I think, look, it's probably a double-edged sword. I think for me, logically speaking, one, they have very good English that one I can understand, right?
Mm,
And two, that the ethic typically is they're very hardworking. They want to do a really good job. And that three, especially with OA here, is like they're really family orientated. So everything they want to do is not just for their immediate family, but their extended family too.
mm,
On that end, and that's why we build a lot about the family connection here in OA for us. And so for me, it's a lot of that. But then and this is probably not just specific to the Philippines anyway. Like what we try and find, especially when they work with me, it's a culture shock working with me. Like, Alex, you already said, oh man, I don't like people like you sometimes, Richard, who, question these things that make me think the things that I don't want to think about probably, right? And mate, you should see it, like literally just before this call, one of my team members, I remember like we've been working together for about 4 or 5 years now, and the start was like bang, right? Because she's like, why are you questioning us? You're not giving us this. And this is the thing I do is I'm like, ask the hard question because no one else is going to ask the hard question. And it's for me, I love it that some of the Philippines, I can't say all of them, right? Because people are different situations. But when they work with me and the team, is they get to experience that challenge and growth there, and that they're willing to try for it, right? Not everyone is, but
mm.
from my end, that's really one of the big things for me.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. A lot of obviously a lot of coaches in Australia, a lot of business people in Australia hire overseas because the cost of living is lower. Therefore, tangibly, it costs lower to employ these people. But once I started working with my first Filipino assistant, I've never looked anywhere else for a team for exactly the reasons you said. I've got super hardworking people. Christian's in there, he's listening right now. He's been with us for like, I'm going to say a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and I love him to bits. Um, the my team, and I found this with every single person I've hired or worked with out of that country. You present them with a problem or something they don't know how to do, and they go and figure it out. Whereas when I was in restaurants in Australia, it becomes, oh, I haven't been, I'm not paid to do that. I'm not, oh, that's not my job. So what do you mean? It's not your job? Can you just help me out, bro? During, a lot of my friends in hospitality have really struggled to find staff post pandemic and lockdowns because a lot of the overseas workers left and went home. And Australian people, as much as I love Australian people, I guess maybe because there's so many, comfort, safety blankets in Australia, it's very easy for them to say, oh, I don't really fancy doing that for a job. And so you obviously, were on the grind at KPMG. That's a massive, hardcore company to work at. Me coming from hospitality, I guess we're both blessed with good work ethics, but not everyone is raised like that. I feel like in the Philippines, there's a problem-solving mindset. There's a get it done, and like you said, just loving people. Just for all of my team listening right now, love you to absolute bits, and I'm doing my best to come out and visit because, but my twin toddlers are definitely getting in the way of leaving the country for the time being.
And I love what you're saying, Alex. And I gotta say this without knowing too much about you, right? But if your team's like that, it's because you've set up what I call like the safe environment, right, for them to go and explore, and you give them that time. You're not, and this is what we find here, right, with some clients is like, not every VA is going to be like that. So if you want that, you need to create that environment and support them with time, resources, right, on that end. And this is what some would have challenges with is financially, like, no, I need this stuff done now, right? I need you to go figure it out now. And then they watch the clock. Well, with internally in our team, I said one of the things I want to do is this, guys, is we want to create a safe environment where you can experiment and try things and fail, and it's okay. Right? Obviously, I'm not going to give you $1 million and go fail with that, guys. Right? It's we control it in that space, and I'm sure that's what you did with your team, so that then they can feel confident that if we screw up, Alex isn't going to fire me. Only when people are operating in that fear mode of like, if I screw up, I'm going to lose my job. That's why they're like, it's not in my job scope to do that, right? I don't need to be doing that, right? And so,
Well, I see I see it if people are screwing up, then it's my fault because I've given them a job they're not ready for yet, or I haven't explained it well enough to them yet. And that's just probably something that I learned from the best head chefs I had. The best head chefs I had were ones who give you a bit of free reign and then allow you to mess up. And if you did mess up, then they'd train you more instead of just yelling at you. They kind of, they'd come and they'd stay back an extra half hour at the end of the night and teach you something. And that's hugely helpful as a young person who's just trying to learn and do their best, because no one knows everything, right? Least of all me.
This is an awesome story I want to share quickly, right? He's a coach of ours, right? He had a client he was a client of ours, and I remember I had to get on a call with him, and he's like, Richard, my VA's not like, was it like not proactive, right? I got to tell him to do stuff and all that. I'm like, cool, right? He's like, he doesn't ask me enough questions and all of that. And I go, okay. So I listened in another call you had with my team, and you said this. You said, when he asks you questions, you kind of get frustrated because it's an obvious question, right? An obvious answer. And I say this, common sense isn't so common, right? On that end. And I'm like, and then you said this, right? You said when he does that, you get frustrated. Granted, I understand. But what you do is then you go AWOL, right? Away without lead. You shut him off. You just walk off because you're pissed off and you don't respond to him. And so what I said was, this is a thing here. You're not creating that space for that because he's asking a question. It's going to a black hole. Yeah. So then as the VA, I'm like, I asked a question. My boss didn't respond to me. Well, bloody oath, right? Why should I ask more questions? Why should I try and do more stuff if I'm not going to get responses, right? And I said, do you see here, even as a coach, your actions are showing that you say you want this, but you're not following through with it in the action. So that's why your actions is telling your VA, hey, you ask a question, I'm not even going to respond to you because you're not worth it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's tough, right? No one's born a great leader or a great boss. You got to stuff up and figure it out as you go. And I really appreciate it when my team actually pulls me up on things that make their life more difficult, because that forces me to try and fix it. And hopefully that's because of creating a safe environment, like you mentioned, where they feel like they can share. Dude, because of that stuff up at the beginning on the recording, we're running a little bit close to the end of this show, but I wanted to just allow you to give us some sound bites that we can use to plug Outsourcing Angel, because I really love what you're doing. It sounds like you're not just helping people to hire a staff member, but also train and nurture these people and create an environment where they can grow. So Outsourcing Angel, tell us about it. Tell us why people should look into your services and how it's going to help them.
Yeah, appreciate that, Alex, man. And look, at Outsourcing Angel, yes, we help you find angels, right? On that end. I can't promise it's always going to be the first angel, right? But what I can promise is we'll work our butts off to get the right angel with you on that end. But we're not just there to do that. What we want to do is we transform, right, as a business to not just be a recruiter. We're actually going to be a systemization company. So, people come in saying, I want a VA. And then we ask you guys, hey, do you have processes in place? Like, yeah. And I go, where is it? And they all point up here, right? It's in my head. And so what we want to do with our Systemize and Scale Up program is to help extract those things out of your head, right? To then leverage what processes we have to then implement in your own business, right? To make things easier. We're going to systemize the processes. We look at the customer journey. We want to make it simple for you and your team. Then we want to, streamline that as well as automate as much as we can. And then what we can't automate, right, on the right budgets, then we put it with delegations for your VA. So Yeah, that's what we want to do here. So we set you guys up so you have the right system ready going. Your VA comes in, we train them up on the systems we just built, and so that then we also coach you as a business owner to work with your VA better, how to become a better manager leader on that end.
That is such a better service than some of the kind of just set and forget kind of hiring agencies out there. I think that's really, really important, man. And as someone who values team morale and overall happiness, I think that's really, really awesome. So thank you, and I'm really excited to be able to chat with you today, bro. Where do you live in Sydney?
I live out west, man, so like Liverpool, right around there.
It's a long way away. What's your Asian background? Where's your family from?
From Vietnam, but Chinese Vietnamese.
Okay, cool. Because they're all the best. I find Vietnamese, Southeast Asian food is out your way, right?
Yes.
So I do not say this superficially. I would love to come and get some lunch with you sometime, bro, because I've really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Wait, you got my email, man. Hit me up, Alex, right? I'll go take you to some nice Vietnamese places, right? And we can talk shop, man. And I'd love to understand more about you and your team and how you guys are running it. And dude, feel free to pick my brain. I'll try and bring value to you of like, dude, you can do this, you can do that, right? But oh man, sounds good, man. Where are you in Sydney?
I'm right on the tip of the northern beaches, so I'm about as far away from you as possible in Sydney. But it's always nice to get off the peninsula from time to time, especially to get some good pho, because that's what we're all about, man. So, dude, Richard Fu, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story and your insights with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Anyone listening, there he is. That was Richard Fu. We're going to post all his links that you need to learn about Outsourcing Angel and what he does in the video in and around where you're looking now. If you're listening to the recording or live, love you to bits for that. We're over 100 episodes here now, and we could not have done it without you. So thank you so much. I'll be back next week with another incredible guest or two on Coaches to the Moon. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Much